Kia ora everybody, welcome to our 28th of November meeting of Te Puna Kōrero. I'll open the meeting with asking Taku to lead us in karakia. Kia ora, thank you everyone. Apologies, I don't have any apologies, but I will note that Councillors Johnson and Hayward are joining us via Zoom. Public forum, there is none. Conflict of interest declarations, are there any conflicts of interest? Councillor Wehapi.
Sorry, it's no direct conflict of interest, but I just wanted to just declare my position as the chair of the DRC, in particular the paper 7.4.
Thank you, Councillor Wehapi. Any further conflicts of interest? Councillor Duncan.
I guess as Deputy Chair, I've got to also then declare, do I?
Just your position.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much.
And now I have to clean up the mess.
Any further conflicts? There do not appear to be any. Moving through to notification of extraordinary business, just a note here, the Chief Executive has notified that report 7.2 be withdrawn from the meeting, noting that this will come back to TPK in the new year. Confirmation of minutes. I'll move the minutes to put them on the table. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Leggett. Are there any corrections or comments on the minutes? No, Councillor Duncan says no. Perfect, thank you very much. In that case, I will put them. All in favour say aye. Opposed? That is carried. That brings us through to the reports. Just before we get into that, a quick note, depending on how things go today, noting we have Nick Leggett from Wellington Water coming in for a workshop later. If we are still going with the business of TPK at 10 o'clock, at that point I will adjourn the meeting for morning tea, we will have the workshop, and then we will finish the business of TPK after the Wellington Water workshop. Taku. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. All right, with that, I will get into the report, starting with item 7.1, the proposed temporary road closure. I will move that to put it on the table, seconded by Mayor Baker. Thank you very much. I will invite, do we have Kaylee to speak to the report? No, not unless there are any questions. Okay, so taking the report as read, are there any questions or comments on item 7.1? There do not appear to be any. Just looking online, doesn't look like there are either. All right, in that case, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That is carried. Moving past 7.2 that has been withdrawn, we come to 7.3, request for approval to consult proposed keeping of animals bylaw. I will move that to put it on the table. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ford. Thank you very much. Do we have officers to speak to this report? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick intro as we workshops this item earlier in the month. So today we are asking for your approval to seek public feedback on the keeping of animals bylaw. There's really three aims for this review. So firstly, turning our eye to future intensification. It's reasonable that as our city becomes more dense that we might have to tighten up some of our limits around animals in the city. A clearer enforcement process, particularly around nuisance, and a balanced approach to keeping animals and neighbouring properties. Lastly, the addition of cats into the bylaw. So this is based on alignment with our neighbouring councils as well as previous requests from our communities to test this. Consultation will run from the 3rd of December to the 10th of February. These dates are aligned with some of our other policies and bylaws that are out at this time. Just for efficiency, we'll hold the same events and have officers available at each of those events. So I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Starting with Councillor Wehapi.
Not a question as such, but that I support going out into consultation with this, and in particular the cats in compliance, fully in support of that. So hopefully the community is too.
Any further questions or comments from councillors? Don't appear to be any. All right, just very quickly from me, thank you very much. I'm happy with where we've landed on this. I wonder if you could speak a little bit further, particularly around the recommendations on the keeping of bees, in terms of, I understand that one of the local beekeeping groups is the Wellington Beekeeper Club. Agriculture New Zealand has worked with us on this, in particular around the restrictions of no beehives allowed on properties under 500 metres squared. Could you just speak a little bit to the rationale as you understand it around that particular recommendation? And I just wonder if we know whether this is likely to impact on any existing beehives within the city.
Okay, I'll answer the first question around the impact. So we don't currently permit for hives. So people register through, I might have to, APENS, American Fowl Brood Agency Management. So we have contacts through them, but they won't tell us the exact properties. So I believe the numbers are as we have them covered in the report, but in terms of what property size each person has, we don't have that type of information. The limits are based on advice from the Wellington Beekeepers Clubs, as well as aligned with Wellington's provisions in their bylaw. So that was the advice that they gave in terms of what has worked previously, and we decided to test that with the community based on that advice.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Yeah, that seems really appropriate to me, so I'm very comfortable with that. There being no further questions or comments, I will put the recommendations that we adopt the statement of proposal for the proposed keeping of animals bylaw, agreeing to conduct formal consultation from December 3 through to February 10. All those in favour, please say aye. Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. That moves us through to item 7.4, the local alcohol policy approval to consult. I will move this to put it on the table. Do I have a seconder? Wants to second. Councillor Leggett, thank you very much. And I will hand over to officers to introduce this paper.
Morena tātou. Through you, the Chair. Today we are seeking permission to consult on the policy options and the proposed draft local alcohol policy. I want to just do a quick summary of how we have got to this point in the process so far, and then I will go and run through the focus areas and options with you. So we have explored the evidence, the research, and concluded that alcohol harm is still an issue for Porirua City, and that some communities are more vulnerable than others to alcohol harm. We acknowledge that most people drink responsibly and do not drink in harmful ways. In spite of this, however, alcohol harm remains a significant issue for many people in our communities. Council has responsibilities under the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act to provide for the safe and responsible sale, supply and consumption of alcohol, and to minimise the harm caused by excessive or inappropriate use of alcohol. So we have explored policy levers with you, and these are the levers that are available to Council at the moment, and they are aimed to potentially reduce some of the harms for our communities. We have sought the input and advice of the Medical Officer of Health, national and local police officers, and our alcohol licensing officers, and we have also undertaken both targeted and public engagement with our community. We have done all that we can with the evidence at hand and have considered legal advice as well, and now it is time to seek a wider community's input on this policy as well as their feedback on the policy options. So we'll just quickly run you through the options of each of the focus areas. And I just wanted to quickly highlight that the options are based on an alcohol harm reduction approach and are informed by the evidence included in the social impact assessment. The approach aims to provide greater protections for those in our community that are most vulnerable to alcohol harm. Taking a harm reduction approach means that Council is taking a more restrictive approach to the sale of alcohol, and we must acknowledge that there will be likely impacts for businesses, and there may also be inconveniences for some people who will need to change their purchasing behaviours. However, a decrease in profits and inconveniences for some should not outweigh the significant benefits and positive outcomes that could be achieved for all of Porirua from reducing alcohol harm. especially for those in our communities that are most vulnerable.
Just a very quick note for councillors as well. You may have seen we have a handout in addition to the paper that will be sitting next to each of you on your desk to follow along through the discussion of each of these focus areas.
So, focus area 1 is establishing priority areas. So the main purpose of creating priority areas allows council the ability to take a targeted approach with the policy levers in the areas that are most vulnerable to alcohol harm. The proposed priority areas have been identified as suburbs that score highly in 2 or more of the following data sets and risk factors. The first is high density of alcohol licences. Second is socio-economic deprivation levels between 8 and 10. And the third is evidence of high rates of victimisations from police data. This is above average than the rest of the city, and these have also been adjusted for the population. The recommended priority areas are Porirua City Central, Titahi Bay, Rānui Mungavin, Cannons Creek, and Elsdon Takapuahia. Focus Area 2, sensitive site provisions. So the draft policy has recommended we keep the current sensitive site provisions, which includes schools and alcohol and drug treatment facilities. We have, however, removed the reverse sensitivity clause and ensured that the provisions now reflect the new legislation, the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Community Participation Act 2023. So under the current LAP, all licences issued before 2017 are not considered against the LAP. With this new legislation, all applications, both new and renewals, will now be considered against the LAP. So this means maintaining the status quo for sensitive site provisions will be applied to all licences. This is quite a significant change for alcohol licensing in Porirua, therefore that is why it is our recommended option. Focus Area 3, the radius of sensitive sites. So a part of the sensitive site provisions is the ability to set that proximity of measures for how far or how close they are to alcohol stores. We are recommending that these remain as the current 100 metre radius. So options relating to off licences. Focus Area 1, maximum trading hours. Our recommended option for off licence hours is to reduce the hours to between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. for the whole city. These hours consider the evidence provided from local officers as well as international research that assess where alcohol is available to purchase in relation to the most common hours of alcohol-related harm, which is roughly between 9 p.m. and into the early hours of the morning. The reduction in the morning hours is to provide greater protections of exposing tamariki and rangatahi to alcohol, advertising and other exposure in the hours they are most likely to be travelling to school. The additional option for off-licence hours is to apply these only to the priority areas. Focus Area 2 for off-licences includes introducing a sinking lid to any new licences. Our recommended option is to introduce a sinking lid in the priority areas only. This means no new off-licences can be introduced in priority areas unless there is a very good case to do so, and this is at the discretion of the DLC. The main goal of this option is to, over time, reduce off-licence numbers in areas that are vulnerable to alcohol harm. Focus Area 3 for off-licences again is an alternative option to the sinking lid, which is introducing a cap. So the alternative option looks at introducing a cap on the total number of licences within the priority areas. The cap will set a total number and it cannot go up or go down. If a licence was to close, one licence can take over that licence. The Focus Area 4 for off-licences is also discretionary conditions. So the suggested new discretionary conditions include restrictions on using buy now, pay later options, restricting cheap, high percentage single sale drinks, tighter restrictions on external advertising, and tighter restrictions on remote sellers and on-demand delivery, where we will require an ID check upon the delivery of the alcohol. We're also suggesting or recommending that we keep the current discretionary conditions as they are. So options relating to on licences. Focus Area 1, which is maximum trading hours. The recommended option here is to maintain the current hours of 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. the following day outside of the priority areas, and within those priority areas, reducing the hours to 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. the next day. Focus Area 2, discretionary conditions for off-on licences. The recommended option is to maintain the current conditions with no changes. Options relating to club licences. Focus Area 1 is maximum trading hours for club licences. The recommended option here is maintaining the current hours, which are 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. the following day outside of the priority areas. We would reduce those, we would keep, the recommended option is to keep the current hours for outside the priority areas and reducing the hours for priority areas, for clubs within those priority areas to 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. And the recommended discretionary conditions for club licences, we are suggesting we again keep the current discretionary conditions and add 2 new discretionary conditions, which include a certified manager to be on site after 9 p.m. and for all nominated responsible persons to take on specialised training. So we have included maps of the priority areas in the papers, as well as a map of the 100 versus 200 radius around those sensitive sites. And the council paper also seeks your approval to make amendments to the SOP under the delegation of the CE. Also just wanted to quickly highlight our consultation plans. As Mia has said, with keeping of animals, we're doing the same. We are bringing all of our consultations together. We will be attending events together, provide our community opportunity to comment, ask questions on all of the papers available, all of the consultation engagements available at the time. A comms plan, online social media and website content and paper-based materials are being prepared to assist with promoting the consultation. And we are looking at attending Pacific Night Markets, Waitangi Day, a lot of the summer events to share the proposed draft policy. That's everything. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for going through that thoroughly as well. I think given the level of detail in here, that's very useful as a reminder even after our workshop. I think, councillors, because we have so many specific recommendations we're looking at here, the way I'll move through this paper is through each focus area one at a time, and that way we can have a discussion on that and move on to the next one, closing it off to avoid us having to jump around. And I think hopefully that means it'll be less confusing. So I'm just going to check quickly as I go through, and then if anyone has general comments at the end, then they can make those comments. Sorry, Councillor Duncan?
I'd rather have the opportunity to suggest that we drop all of this until we can get a regional plan. This totally misunderstands the nature of drinkers. All we're going to do is increase the number of drink driving going on, and I'd rather see a whole regional plan set up rather than us going through this that looks like it's been written by the Temperance League. So if we could, I'd rather look at...
Okay, thank you very much. All right, what I'm going to do in that case, if there are some general comments that people have, I will go through those, noting I've got councillors, Mayor Baker and Councillor Johnson. If people have specific things they want to talk about in relation to the specific recommendations here, we'll move through those afterwards. So I'll go to you first, Mayor Baker.
Well, I just want to be reminded why we actually need to have an LAP, because I actually thought all these things were covered under the Act, including the sensitive sites they can come under for an application. And I feel like we're going down to a bloody nanny state now. We've got all these rules and regulations, but I figured they could be actually covered under the application process. Personally, I'm more worried about vaping and the number of stores around schools than alcohol, but I just thought, why do we have to have another policy? Why do we keep going with this? So could you just give me that answer?
So, sorry, can I just quickly clarify your question? Are you asking why what's in our proposed policy is not included in the Act?
No, I'm asking why we actually have to have an LAP. I know we started in 2017, we didn't have it before. I'm saying, why do we actually have to have one as long as we have the sensitive sites included under all the application processes? Because the hours, I mean, are we going to get hit from the supermarkets like they did in Auckland with anyway, answer that.
Okay, so the question around why we have an LAP. So obviously, council introduced an LAP in 2017. That was the first one. We do have responsibilities to review the LAP. So how that lands is up to yourselves in the community, post consultation, obviously. And the main reason to have an LAP is to ensure that we have the ability to tailor and target restrictions to our community. The Act doesn't necessarily provide that. It is quite broad. And our community, through the evidence, we can see our community are relatively vulnerable to alcohol harm, and the LAP provides us the means to provide some protections to that harm.
But you're using statistics on that rather than actually the community. Oh no, I'm going to be quiet. Sorry. Yeah.
In regards to your second question around supermarkets, it is unknown. I could not tell you whether supermarkets will take us to court. That is up to them, obviously through consultation, but it is possible, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
No, sorry, there's an error. I'm fine. I haven't got my hand up.
All good, no worries. Thank you very much. Next I had Councillor Weehappy.
Thank you. In regards to the trading hours, I would understand consulting on sensitive or different priority areas. I am very nervous about the fact of putting this out to supermarkets in particular for the sake of 3 hours. Yeah. We could be actually up for huge court costs. And also supermarkets do run they're a little bit more well regulated than other off-licence areas in the city. So, I'm not sure I feel comfortable, but, it's just one of those things. In regards to consultation, and we definitely, what you've suggested is brilliant, going out to all. But we've also got to remember as well is that we've got to go out to a broader, not just saying, okay, so we recognise that alcohol is not a good thing, so we're just going to go and ask everybody that doesn't like alcohol. So I just think we have to be very balanced in a consultation like this, because there are a lot of people who, their lives, their livelihoods are businesses that include it, whether it be on or off. But I understand that the off licences is probably the main focus here. But I just wanted to say, as long as they're including everybody, I'd be more comfortable with that. But I would question the fact that not every council in New Zealand has an LAP as well. So, Anyway, I'll be quiet now.
Yeah.
Councillor Hayward.
I'll wait for hearings.
Can you guys hear me? I'm hoping so. First of all, I just wanted to acknowledge that because I hadn't had the chance to at the start of this item, I've just joined in, so apologies for that. That I serve as the patron of the Titahi Bay Bowling Club, and there may very well be a conflict of interest in terms of my role, but I haven't had any discussions with the committee about this matter, nor do I attend committee meetings of the bowling club, so I'm going to acknowledge that and assume that I shall be fine to participate in this debate. As to I have a specific question around the consultation. Post-consultation, councillors could choose to make slight adjustments with regards to the proposal that's gone out. Is that still the case, as it is with other consultations that we put up?
Yes, that is the case.
Right. So just I've been mindful of the social impact assessment, and I wanted to thank officers for creating that. I think having listened to some of the comments from Duncan, Your Worship, and the Deputy Mayor, I think it would be prudent of us to withhold any comment about our own moralities until the public has had a chance to have their say. In the social impact assessment, it actually does have sections in there where they have consulted existing license holders of, on and off license holders. Not all of them participated in their feedback to that process. There's also significant sections that talk about the nature of alcohol harm with particular regard to Māori and Pacifica communities, and also that our council, in alignment with the Mangapare 2015 as well. Sorry, Te Mangaroa rather, Arahamai. Also around our commitment as a council to follow through with that work with Ngāti Toa. On balance, there's certain things in the workshop that was detailed that haven't made it into this document. And while I don't think personally that it's actually hit the right mark, I actually think the less that us as councillors say at this point, the better, and actually allow the public to have their say and allow the consultation to come in, and then we can make a decision about that. Kia ora.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hayward. Councillor Leggett.
So on that basis, I would suggest that we don't go through this item by item, as this is a consultation paper. Let's put it out to for the general public, ratepayers and others, to make their comments, and then we can prognosticate when it comes back.
I'm comfortable with that approach. So, Chief Executive would like to speak. Yeah.
We have not considered the idea of not having a local alcohol policy. If you want that to be one of the, we haven't even explored I don't know what the settings would be if that approach was taken. If you want that to be part of the consultation, we would have to amend the statement of a proposal. I'm looking at my colleagues over here. And you would need to move an amendment to that effect if that is what you want. We probably have to, it would delay consultation. It would take some time to do that, and we'd have to bring it back, I think, to demonstrate to you what that actually would mean. We have chosen to do a local alcohol policy in this council because we want to give the people of Porirua a chance to have input to that. Otherwise, we are just relying on the legislation. So we've had one for quite some time now. I've sat through several of the reviews of them. They're always somewhat contentious, but we do have strong views in our community. It really is up to the council whether you want those views to be heard by you, or you want to take a decision not to involve yourself in this area. It would be quite unusual for a metropolitan council to do that, but I just thought I'd make those comments.
I wasn't asking to get rid of it. I just want to know why we had it. That was the question. So you answered that, Wendy. Thank you.
I've got Councillor, well, actually I'll go Councillor Ford first, who hasn't spoken, and then I'll come back to Councillor Hayward.
No, I was just going to say that, one thing, just the local alcohol policy is a tool that we have that we can help to, for our community to try and reduce alcohol-related harm. So I think it would be silly to not have it. And then the only real question I had was around the consultation plan. And making sure that we get out to the affected parties and making sure we get those people engaging in the process, as opposed to having people from outside that area dictating what happens to people inside the affected areas. So that's all I was curious. Have you got a plan around that?
So we will be sending all the information out to all of our licensees, anyone that's registered with us. We will send out the information, and we are offering anyone in our community the opportunity to come and speak with council office. Council officers will reach out and hold meetings. We haven't booked any yet, obviously because of the Christmas period, but we do still have February and early March, so we do have time to organise that.
Councillor Hayward, your hand was up. Do you no longer have a question?
No, Councillor Ford's handled my point about the role of the local alcohol policy.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. All right, well, I'm happy to take the suggestion from Councillor Leggett. I should explain my rationale was we are obviously going out with a number of recommended options. We're not just putting out options without any recommendation. I wanted to provide the opportunity for if there was any suggestion we might want to change any of those recommended options. However, if there isn't, I'm comfortable to proceed through without going through item by item. I'm not seeing any indication from any councillors that they do want to speak to that, so I'll give one last opportunity for any other questions or comments before I put the motion. There do not appear to be any. All right, in that case, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Sorry, 1 second. All right, I'm moving now to item 7.5, the finance report. I will move the report to open it for discussion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Duncan, thank you very much. Ian, would you like to speak to this?
Great. So I'm well aware of the fact that in recent weeks we've had conversations about the past, which was the annual report, and we've had conversations about the future, which is the annual plan, but this report is about what's happening now in the current timeline, so just placing it there for your, just to confirm. This report has well, it's the first quarter of the new financial year, so the 24-25 year that we're in, and it has a slightly different format from other reports, quarterly reports that you've seen before. So just, it's got the usual statement of comprehensive revenue and expense, it's got the usual statement of financial position, and the usual capital expenditure table, but we've also drilled down this time on, and this will be a regular feature of the report going forward, the Wellington Water capital spend, simply because of its significance. And they have approximately control over around about half of our capex spend, and there's some really big projects in there, obviously. So good to bring some that to the table. And then lastly, in this report, we're just doing a little bit of a dive into the riparian project. I think this is as a result of some questions that have come in previous TPK sessions. So that's the structure of this report. The one thing that everyone is usually drawn to is how are we doing with regards to our revenues and our expenses. So using the term profit and loss, if you like. So that's the table on my page 2. Sorry, I don't know what page it is on your. Sorry. 231. Okay, so just working through that table, there's, if you like, there's two parts to it. The net controllable surplus line, which is about halfway down, and then the other line is the net surplus, including the exceptional items. And so here we've split the things that are controllable from those things that are non-controllable. If you look at the controllable line, we're actually really close to year-to-date budget at a -1 there in the variance column, which says to me that we're tracking really closely to the things that we can control. Now, it's true, there are some ups and downs, above that line, but they are currently offsetting to roughly around, where we would expect to be. So I think that's a good news story. What is happening, though, in the exceptional items area is that we are having a number of it's not going quite according to budget. So things like depreciation, development contributions, income from vested assets and gains on sale and so on. These are things which are kind of outside council's control. Some of them are pretty lumpy in that, income from vested assets, they often arrive on our doorstep at the end of a financial year. Perhaps we haven't quite phased that right. So those types of things we will watch, of course, but we do they're in the non-controllable part of the statement for a reason. Depreciation, I just thought I'd expand on that. Last year, you may recall, we revalued the roading category, and just the values went up to a point that, a much greater point than we thought in our planning process. So depreciation charges in this year obviously flow through. So, just to remind you, roading was 400 million book value, went up by 30 million. So that was about a 7.5% increase, and we just didn't factor that amount of an increase in there. But just to remind you, depreciation is a non-cash expense, so it's Yeah. Any questions on that so far?
Thank you very much. First I've got Councillor Philo and then I'll come to Councillor Leggett.
Thanks, Ian. I like the new format.
Great.
Thank you. I'll start with the statement of comprehensive revenue and expense. It was good to see that the grants and subsidies had gone up more than what we expected, and I wondered if that was more of a was that more of a timing thing, or did we get more?
Yeah,
over the year, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, and I must, I'll put a plug in for the next quarterly report. We will have a forecast, updated forecast for you. So this we haven't had time in the first quarter to do a forecast. So we will be able to drill down on questions like that better in future reports. However, that particular question you've asked, it's largely timing. So we've the cadetship and riparian projects. The timing on the inflow of those subsidies is not as we had expected, which is it's come in earlier. So I think this will resolve through the year. It's not a permanent benefit it's not a permanent.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying that. What else did I have? It was great to see too that there's more an investment. Where was it? Where did I see that? The revenue investment, we got a heck of a lot more than what we were expecting compared to the investment revenue and the interest expense.
Yes. Yep.
So the amount that we got from the investments, the variance outweighed, what had gone up more in the expense for interest, which is good.
Again, another good, and yes, whether that's a permanent thing. That particular line, we're talking interest rates, we're talking all sorts of market dynamics that are in play. So whether that's a permanent favourable variance or whether that's, I'll have to get back to you in the December report.
With regards to point 8, so you've mentioned Downer's maintenance contract there, and that it's gone up 37% compared to the quarter last year. So do you mean September last year, 2023, or did you mean?
Yes, so the first quarter last year. But perhaps if I just go back a step, because the Downers maintenance contract has come up in a few conversations that we've had over the last few weeks. So if I go back to the 23-24 year, so last financial year, that contract went up 33% in the year. Now, that's well above, obviously, CPI and all of those types of CGPI, Capital Goods Pricing Index, and so on. That is really pushing us in that cost line. That was last year. This year, we're also seeing a real push in that space. Now, whether this is at the end of the first quarter, whether we, control the volumes and the expectations that we're placing on Downers or not, we still have time to react. But if things keep going as they are, we could well be in for another increase in that vicinity. So it is the thing that we are scrambling to look at and review and check, the transport, the roading maintenance function is something which is very high on our radar. Mike, is that a fair comment?
Just to say that we're not happy with that variance, and we will be working hard to bring it back in line the next quarter.
Yeah,
that's great. That's good to hear. So just to clarify, you mentioned 33% last year. So then, and then 37% in this quarter. So does that mean that quarter 1 was the budget was based on that 33%. You know, that was the benchmark, and then on top of that, it's gone up an additional 37%.
Yeah, for when we set the LTP budgets, we run with Burl price increase projections, but for the major projects, and that included the Downer project, we actually knew there was some pressure in there. So I think in the LTP we ran with a 7% increase for this particular contract, but based on what I'm seeing, that 7%, which was more than the CPI, was not enough. Does that make sense? So we increased it by more than what every other cost line increased, but it still wasn't enough, is what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm. But you're putting some contractual things in place to...
So that contract is up for tender in the next few months. So we're looking to tighten right up in there, make sure, because the market goes like this, right? And at the moment, it's a really good time to be tendering because prices are coming in good. They're coming in better than they were. So that is our main opportunity to refix.
Oh, cool. Just one last question. So in that same point, just the last paragraph, can you just clarify with regards to the personnel costs there that have that went up more than budget, the salary increases that they're coming in October, but they were backdated to July. So is that what that variance is, or is that not accounted for?
Yeah, so the personnel cost is an interesting one, and just as an FYI, when we prepared the October finance report, that variance had dropped down to 1%. So this issue where it's up at 3 is for the month of September. This is how it was at the snapshot, but 1 month later it moved, which kind of indicates this up and down ride, particularly in the first few months of a financial year. But hopefully it will settle down. I haven't seen a November report yet, but I'm kind of hoping that we're tracking about the same. Lots of things going on with the personnel costs line, and as we all know, it's a different labour market to the one that we faced a year ago. We had assumptions in there about vacancy rates and so on. Obviously, people are staying in their job a bit, and holding on to their job tightly. So we're not seeing the same levels of vacancy that we had planned for. The pay increases, and perhaps Jerry could confirm, but I believe the majority of pay increases were processed into the September quarter, and they were backdated obviously to the 1 July period. So most of them have been factored into these numbers, but there are some that were still at that stage, still to be resolved, I think, and weren't resolved until October. Is that, yeah? So we've got most of the pay increases factored in, but there are still some that at this stage were not.
Okay, thanks, Ian.
All right, I'm going to come to Councillor Leggett, and then I've got Councillor Hayward after that.
I'm just going to play Mike Duncan for a second, and just remind us all that Downers is not Downers, it's Downer. Sorry, I think we've discussed this before. They probably should change their name, but because everyone calls them Downers. However, so I think no, good point. Just point. Mike would have done it anyway. This is a great report, and I'm just reminded. I think you've covered off, Councillor Philo, the issues. It's only the first quarter. I just wondered whether there were any things in here that we needed to be concerned about. We've already discussed a couple, and these things tend to work their way through as the year goes by. Is there anything else any trends that we should be aware of that may impact the final outcome of the year?
Honestly, I am just the thing that keeps me up at night is just the road and contract costs, and they just seem to be pushing our allowed budgets and everything else, and I'm throwing in the October report there as well. I think it's tracking reasonably well. I think the budgets, to date, we seem to be working within those envelopes reasonably well. The non-controllable stuff, I think you're right. It will just resolve itself through the course of the year. So that does not worry me. Interest rates and things, these are just dynamics that we just ebb and flows. We run with them, and but the roading contract is the one thing where I do think we do have some control and levers to pull back or accelerate, or in response to what we're seeing in the finances. But that's to come as we go through the year.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I think we have confidence that officers will address that with Downer anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora no. Thank you, Ian, for the preparation of the reports. Councillor Phil has asked a couple of the questions that were going to be the focus of my line, but the one that isn't in there is just regarding point 5 and the example that's used with regards to DCs and it being considered lumpy, and obviously that is mostly based on market factors, and that our officers are preparing a revised forecast for the next report. Can I just get clarity here? When the annual report the LTP was developed, we were already anticipating a significant downturn in terms of the likely amount of revenue coming from DCs already. Was that accurate? And just want to be clear in my mind around that.
Jim?
Yeah, I mean, yes, but we're actually in the middle of some fairly significant negotiations at the moment.
Sorry, Jim, I think your microphone's off.
I'm not talking.
No, I can hear it. Are we good?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So just on that, we are in the middle of a few negotiations at the moment that would be relatively significant. But whether we see these DCs in this year is another question. The answer to the question is I'm not entirely sure, actually. We may not have factored down the trend that we saw from last year. That's what I would probably assume.
Okay, thanks, Jim. I guess I'm just foreshadowing the concern that I have around our ability to accurately track DCs in this context. Obviously, it's a very unique circumstance with factors, most of those factors well out of our control. But perhaps by the next report, while not trying to break any covenants of confidentiality, there may be an improvement in that budget line, if I've understood what you said, Jim, correctly.
Yeah, I think we can look at what's on our books coming and possibly do a little bit more to potentially forecast what the phasing might look like. Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
Yep.
Can I just add one other thing, Chair? Just in terms of things that may shock the books, we will do some sensitivity analysis around the aftercare provisions for the landfill. I think that's an important one, given conversations that have been had to date. The auditors do look at that pretty closely at the end of the year, so I think that's one that we could go one way or another.
Or is that all your questions, Councillor Hayward?
That is, thank you.
Cool, thank you very much. Anything further from other councillors? Doesn't appear to be so. The main thing for me, just wanted to note the good news story there, riparian planting slightly ahead of schedule for this contracting term, which is really good, really positive. And I just wanted to check as well, obviously in the context of OCR drop this week, not unexpected, that's all factored into this. Yep.
Yeah, so it was the market was predicting to 95% confidence that there was going to be a 50 basis point cut, 5%, 75 basis, so they pretty much got that right. When we come to the Audit and Risk Committee, we're actually going to give a little discussion about what's happening in the market and wholesale rates. So those that are interested in all that interesting things, stay tuned. Yeah. I do want to answer one specific question, Chair, that was asked by Councillor Philo, specifically, which is on our list register of actions to follow up on. You asked about how do we treat the riparian planting costs in our budget. So the revenue that we get from, is it MFE?
Yes.
Yeah, goes into the subsidies and grants, and the costs appear in the other cost categories. The other cost, which is quite big, right? That's to answer your specific question you asked some weeks ago.
All right, thank you very much. I am going to put the motion that we receive the report. All those in favour, please say aye. Opposed? That is carried. And that moves us through to item 7.6, our major projects report. I'll move it to put it on the table. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Waddle. Thank you very much. Lynn, would you like to introduce this, or should we jump straight into item by item?
Item by item.
Straight into item by item? Okay, cool, perfect. We will take our usual approach to this paper. So I will start with Kiritaki Tuatahi Datascape. Any questions on this? Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thanks for that report. Hey, page 241, the risks and issues with the IBIS, planning, budgeting, forecasting tool. Can you expand a bit on that for us?
Through the chair. Yes, so the budgeting, planning and forecasting tool is still in development, and there are meetings, there's actually even one today, and meetings scheduled next week to continue the development on it. So we have developed a part of the suite, and we're just finalising now the development on the actual forecasting tool side of it. Development is tracking to how we expect it to with schedule and scope, and we're confident that we will be able to deliver that within the time frame we've specified.
Anything further on this item? Doesn't appear to be so. How good to see some green on this. Oh, sorry, did I miss someone?
Yeah,
Jim? Yeah.
Through the chair, I'd just like to make a comment. I just wanted to pass on my thanks and congratulate Chanel for the immense amount of work that she's done on this project to get it to this point. We are literally going to close this project out at December. We have some commercial mechanisms in place to make sure that that happens as well as some tidy up just in the new year. But I just wanted to acknowledge the the leadership and the effort that the BTG group in particular have done in turning this around this year. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you, Jim. All right. In that case, I'll move to the next item, Te Ranui Eastern Porirua Development. Any questions or comments? Councillor Wehapi.
The Mayor and I were actually talking about this, the Te Ranui, because I see that they are removing the where we are removing the roundabout, the egg. We thought that there was some talk about it staying there. Are we wrong or are we right?
Well, it makes the traffic flow better.
Thanks, yes, there was some talk. If that roundabout's only designed and put in as a temporary roundabout, if we were going to make it permanent, we would have to redesign it, and we wouldn't put it back the way that it currently is configured. So that's why we're removing it, because we couldn't leave it there on a permanent basis as it is. Best practice in terms of traffic management, Your Worship.
Was that all from you, Councillor Wehapi?
Yes, it's quite interesting though, because there's a little bit, there's probably more support for it now that it's been there this long in the community than not. So, I guess that's just, it is what it is.
Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora no. I just wanted to check, following on from the Deputy Mayor's question, there was also a zebra crossing, temporary zebra crossing put closer up Mount Gavin towards Jerry Collins Stadium, which I believe was part of these mitigation measures as well. Is that likely to be also dismantled as well?
Yes, that is the intent, Councillor.
I guess what I'm wanting to indicate is that there very well, like the roundabout, might very well be good reasons for us to reconsider in future bringing back that zebra crossing in terms of trying to ease pedestrian access to the stadium, particularly when we have games on there at Porirua Park.
Thanks, Councillor.
Mayor Baker.
It's the same as you, Jeff. Backing you up, I want to see that zebra crossing stay. I'd like to see what we can do about keeping it. It's huge for the stadium. We're having so many games up there at the moment and it's used all the time and people are used to it. Why would you take the damn thing away when you invested all that money into painting the lines and doing the little circle things?
So
Don't have to answer that.
Well, I'll have a closer look, Your Worship. Yeah.
Thank you.
And the traffic island along there as well.
Yeah.
Councillor Whelo and then Councillor Ford.
Thanks. Just following on what's been said around the table, is there an idea of the cost to remove both those, the roundabout and the crossing? Like, what kind of a cost is that to actually remove it?
Yes, there is, most definitely. Well, I just don't have that at the tip of my tongue. I'm sorry, Councillor.
I think it would be good
to
know. Yeah, if you could. Thank you.
Councillor Ford.
Yeah, sorry, mine was around that as well. But not just North's wanted that crossing in place, but Ranoi have been asking for it for ages to be put in there. So it would be kind of silly to...
I'll have a closer look.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Any further questions, comments on this item? Don't appear to be so. So I'm going to move through to Northern Growth Area. Any questions or comments? Councillor Lega.
Sorry, I think I asked last time. Is there any update on Northern Growth Area in terms of whether a special purpose vehicle will...
Through you, Chair. No, we haven't had any further updates on the Minister's decision on the specified development project. We're still waiting.
All right.
Sorry, just it's not a question. As Councillor Johnson cannot hear a thing on the computer from what we're saying, she's going to go out and go into the public session to see if that works.
All right. We'll keep an eye on that. Thank you. Central City Wastewater Storage. Green across the board. No questions. Excellent. Our solids handling upgrade. Any questions on this one? Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Lynn. I forgot to mihi you for being there as well, so apologies for that. Thank you for the report. I am trying to get clarity here about the report in regards to the alternate. Now, I'm just going to remember the languages. Apologies. The value engineering exercise. It says that the outcomes from these work streams will be communicated to Council in November 2024. It's the 28th. Any progress on that?
Yes, there has been progress, Councillor. Wellington Water isn't quite ready to provide that advice, but is imminent. And I understand that it's positive news with respect to budgets and the value engineering exercise.
Excellent. Sub-question, Matu Upoko. Can I just confirm, how will this be socialised to councillors? Is it going to be as part of a workshop, or is it going to be just communicated to us through the report from Wellington Water? Can I get clarity on that?
Our intention had been to use reports such as these, but we're happy to run a workshop if councillors would like us to. More than happy to.
I guess we'll know. Just to suggest that there's no point in holding a workshop unless we know what's actually going to be covered. So I think maybe I will reserve my advocacy for a workshop until we see what the report is.
All right. Any further questions on this? Don't appear to be any. Wastewater treatment plant odour treatment. Councillor Thiel.
My question is around the risk of this tendered cost exceeding the budget. Where has that information come from? Because it's only just gone out. Well, it says it's only just gone out for tender in October, like last month.
Through the chair, so the tender is currently being evaluated. I understand that they're close to awarding the contract, and then we will have an update on what the awarded price is.
Oh, okay, so it's just being conservative? You've just been conservative about it exceeding budget?
Correct, it would have been based on estimates that Wellington Water had prior to going out to market.
I did ask them in the wastewater treatment meeting on Tuesday about this topic, and they didn't mention any costs blowing out or going over budget. So hopefully it doesn't.
Yep. This report is at 30 September, so Wellington Water may have updated information, but as at 30 September, that's where the project was at.
Sorry, there's a cross that's popped up. Have you put that up, Councillor Johnson? Okay. All right, no worries. I'm going to move to Papakowhai Shared Path. I have a question on this. Good to see that it's completed. Just noting on the risks, potential risk of remedial works after the audit. If that was to happen, noting that this was a government-funded project, would any remedial works also be funded by the government, or would the costs fall on council?
Good question. I'm not sure, Mike.
Well, from the principal's perspective, we would expect the costs not to fall on the council. Depending on the nature of the reworks, if it's to do with workmanship, it will be on the contractor. And there are a couple of issues with this, but we're not anticipating that will be a cost to the ratepayer at all.
Okay, cool. That's good. Any other questions on this, Councillor Wehapi?
Sorry, no, not a question, but just a comment, actually, that it looks great and there's a lot of positive feedback from the community. I wish they had held their negativity until it had finished, but anyway, it's good to see it done, and yeah.
Councillor Leggett.
Just a comment. North of the crossing outside where the new toilets are going to be, it's still a dog. And you go from a big wide path to a narrow one. I personally have experienced cyclists coming up behind us there and not being able to get past before they got onto the walkway itself. I know this was part of the roading and intersection project, but I just wonder whether some footpath widening could not take place at some stage in the future if and when there were funds available before any major intersection work, because that ain't going to happen in the near future. And I think it causes a bottleneck there. Yeah, hey, I didn't say do it. Hey, all you have to do is add that much to the footpath.
Is that just a comment, Councillor Leggett, or do you want... Okay. All right, I'm going to move to Kinapuru intersections projects. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thanks. I see land agreements have not been agreed. Are there real problems with those land agreements?
It's commercially sensitive.
Through the chair, there has been some problems with those land agreements with one particular party. However, we have changed the approach that we've taken to give us an option so that we can unlock the issues that we've got with Kinapuru Landing. I can't really go into any more depth in this forum.
Don't appear to be any further questions. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ford, yes.
No, mine was related to that. I just wanted to know, was there a likely timeline in terms of when a solution might be or outcome?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got a place now. We're at a place now where we can work effectively with Toa Developments to resolve this. Yeah, timing-wise, I can't give you that answer straight away, but we won't have the delays that we thought we were going to have. Okay, and they're happy with progress in that respect.
All right, moving to Wenera to Onopoto Shared Pathway Coastal Resilience Project, Councillor Duncan.
A similar question with this one. So the land purchase there is still not clear?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to add to that, Mike?
Yeah, it's a long-standing and ongoing land issue related with this project that is not moving very quickly.
So are we still in court proceedings with that, are we?
Through the chair, it's related to Maori land and ownership, and yes, so we don't really have any influence over that process.
Oh. No other questions on this one for now. Obviously more to come on this. Spicer Landfill Cell 3A. Don't appear to be questions or comments. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, can I get clarity? At the wastewater treatment plant meeting the other day, we had the Wellington City Council representatives say they would oppose any move by us to actually extend the life of that tip. Does she speak for the council or does she speak for her local community group?
She's not an elected person on the council. She's a nominated person, isn't she? Wendy?
I don't know who you're talking about, but there's a community board member. I think it was her. So she is elected, and she is the representative of Wellington City. We can certainly clarify Wellington City's position. I think we would need to do that to get a formal council position.
Thanks, Wendy. I appreciate that.
Councillor Hayward. Are your news? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, apologies. Yeah, I was just going to say that while it is prudent to ask for Wellington City for their position on the matter, as chair of that committee, I considered that was a comment as a member of the committee making comment, as I would have if it was anyone else around that table. But it is a timely reminder that comments that are made in the process, which may inevitably end up as part of an environmental court dispute, no one knows with certainty if that ever comes to the case, that comments like this, that do end up as in the record of evidence as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hayward. There were no other comments on that, so I'm going to move through to Spicer Landfill Resource Consent. No, nothing on that. Aotea Lagoon South End. No, looking good.
And sorry, just a comment. It amazes me how quickly they have proceeded with this project, which is amazing. They even work. Yeah, no. So it's a contract, I guess. They work on a Saturday as well, and they're making huge progress. And people are very interested walking around. It's going to make a huge difference.
All right. Next was local water done well. No, talked about this plenty. Councillor Hayward.
Thank you again. It's very discombobulated doing this remotely, I have to admit. I just wanted to get clarity. When Council recently passed a motion to continue to move past the off-ramp and continue the work on a regional entity, that there was language in there around a discussion through the AOG or other mechanisms around the consumer charter. Can I get a clear commentary from our officers as to how that will be progressed through the AOG, how that conversation will be held with other councils as part of that discussion?
There's an advisory oversight group meeting next week. This would not form part of the design. The request to have one would, but the decision for the council in March next year will be whether to consult on this option. So we're still a way off kind of getting to that level of detail. but it will be raised because it was a common thread across the Metropolitan Council. So it is well embedded in there, I think all of them, except perhaps Greater Wellington, who was very fast off the mark, had a similar amendment to the papers. So it's in there, but it will not, you won't get visibility, I would imagine, except in a pretty light-handed way for the decision you have in March.
So just so I'm clear here, that decision is prior to we going out to the public for consultation. If that is the case, what could the public be able to glean from the work that's going to be carried out between then and now, as to what the parameters of such a thing would be?
There won't be a great deal of work done on it. We've got to set up the legal entity, etc. There may well be I'm kind of speaking out of turn because it's so far ahead of time that I don't quite know, but the form of the legal entity should make reference to such a thing, but that's where you're likely to see it in the constitution of a new entity, and we're some way off preparing that.
Okay. I've got no more questions. Thank you.
There are no further questions on that item, so I'm going to move through to harbour and catchment. Green across the board. Yeah. Councillor Lega.
Just a question. What are the erosion... Sorry? Oh, sorry. I have to stop saying that. Not sorry, but my question is, what are the, just out of interest, what are the erosion-prone areas of Pikariri Farm? I would have thought that some of the other catchments, particularly around the Paua to Hanui Inlet area, would be much more erosion-prone than Pikariri.
Mike?
I can't tell you the exact locations, but I can certainly get information for you, Councillor. But one of the key things with this program is landowner agreement to actually do the work. So that's probably more of a driver than, as much a driver as the actual technical need of any particular part.
Okay, I understand that. So will there be in the future discussions with landowners around, and Greater Wellington, around some of the more erosion-prone areas of other catchments as well? Because that's, I think that this is a great thing to do, to target those areas. Will other more erosion-prone areas be targeted in the future?
I'm actually, I'll no, I don't want to make it up, so I'll need to come back to you.
Councillor Waddle.
Yeah, just great to see that this is this whole project is green everywhere. I guess it's optimistic of me, but what measurables can we take from the environment to see the impact of the work that we've done in this space? Is there any?
So the way we will measure the success of this and many other investments we're making in the city is in the quality of the water in our harbour. We currently do measure that, but what we don't do is actually have all those data sets in a place that's easily accessible. So we're working on that as well. There's some great stories to tell, not just with riparian planting, but with our tank that's not that far off, our CBD wastewater holding tank. We expect to see a substantive improvement in the quality of water in our harbour. So that is the way we will do that. The piece of work we have on at the moment involves ESR, Ngāti Toa, the Regional Council, us and Wellington Water. And actually we're off to see Wellington City Council
Can I come back to you on that one, Nathan? It's the seagrass growth in the harbour around the edges. So that had died off. So if we see that picking up, that's where we start to see the original one.
All right. Moving to the climate change program, I've got a quick question on this. Report is at 30 September. There were just two notes, one about the electric boiler expected to be, scoping expected to be completed by October, and also installation of EV stations that are connected up by November 24. Have those two things been completed?
Yeah, okay, so on the boilers, we have completed our analysis of the intention of the council was to go to electric. We have actually done a financial analysis as well of the comparative costs, so that we can understand what the relative benefits are. That's a quite interesting analysis because it totally hinges on the future outlook of gas prices and electricity prices. And the cost of a electric boiler is more expensive than a gas one. The benefit we do get, though, it's marginally more expensive. The benefit we do get, though, is that we can run 2 units, so we effectively have a backup, which is great for Pātika. Just to give you some idea, we had to look at the life cycle costs of these investments. So, a gas boiler would cost in the order of about $700,000. An electric equivalent would be about $1 million. But when you look at the overall total cost, you're spending probably, I think it's around $3 million over the life cycle of the unit, which is 20 years compared to 1.7. As Ross would know, and many of you would know, you need to discount the cash flows, and we did do that at our cost of capital, which is roughly, say, 5%, and you get a marginal benefit. So it's $300,000-400,000 better off going electric. Now, it hinges, as I said, completely on the carbon and electric prices, and that inflection point is probably at around the midpoint of the life of the asset itself. So as people start to move away from carbon, the high fixed costs of it's actually the carbon costs that will drive it, and obviously with the electricity, the relative carbon impact is substantially less, given that we have probably about 80% already renewables in the country. So that's what's going on here. So hand on heart, I can't predict the future, but this is the best information that we've got. And so gas prices would be cheaper at the moment, but will accelerate enormously in the second half of that the life of this project. So
thank you. And so to that, what's the decision-making timeline on that?
So we've made the decision.
Yeah.
And we're actually going to tender. So the tender is about to be released.
Okay.
Okay.
And the rough timeline on that, when will we know?
Just trying to recall, whether we get tenders back before Christmas is another question. Probably in the new year. We're about to progress this project.
Okay, thank you. And just on that second part there, around the EV connection, said to be completed by November 24.
Are those EVs connected?
Not 100% sure. I understand that the training and the rollout is happening with staff, so if it's not there, it's very close.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora no. Mate Upoko, I just want to foreshadow that I have a specific question that doesn't relate to the specific project, so I'll leave that to the end. But my specific question, which I think sits in this space, though it's not necessarily a procurement-related issue, is around what I believe the phrase we have been using, which is not entirely accurate, is managed retreat. I understand that we are due to have a report back from officers with regards to progress being made on a proposed policy around that space. Can I get some update from officers on the time frame of that?
Yes, through you, Chair. Thank you for the question, Councillor Hayward. We will be bringing you back in March a workshop on the adaptation program. So that will be looking at the assets that are affected across the city by way of adaptation, of which some will potentially involve retreating. So that will be coming to you in March. The flooding retreat policy that we have in abeyance because of the funding is still sitting in that spot because we haven't been able to secure funding around the approach to that, but will be incorporated into the adaptation planning that we'll bring to you in March.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, you can come back to me after the, if there's no more questions about climate change.
I've got two more quick questions. I will come back to you, Councillor Hayward. At first, I've got Mayor Baker.
Mine's a comment because we're in climate change, and I got an email that you might be interested in from Rob McIntyre, Infometrics report. Porirua was the lowest emitting metro in 2023 for emissions, with the average emission of 3 tonnes per capita. So I thought that's something you'd be interested in.
Excellent, absolutely. Thank you very much. Councillor Leggett, do you have a question?
Yes.
And are you sorry for it?
I'm not sorry for the question. So no apologies. So the thing about, we're going to do this anyway. However, I just want to be clear and understand what electricity and gas prices going forward were used, because the whole thing, in terms of cost benefit, forget about carbon, in terms of cost benefit, hinges on what we think future prices will be. And I understand gas prices are going to go up because that's what government is forcing. However, it's well known around the world that when you go for this sort of approach, electricity prices go up as well, significantly.
Right, well, I'll do my best to answer that question through the chair. So the expectation is that the assumptions in the analysis were that for the first 8 years or so, gas prices would go up about 7% per year. Carbon charge would be going up between 10 to 30% per year. Electricity, the prices are rising at a roughly, let me get this right, I think they're rising roughly at about 10% per year with the carbon charge included. That's the assumptions.
And so the comment you made was about a backup. What? Explain to me what.
Yes. So one of the beauties of going with the electrical option, the heat pump option, effectively, is that we have, instead of having one unit which is providing all the capacity, we have 2 units. One can be operating at one time, and the other one can be operating when we need the extra. So it's not just a backup; it's being used actively, but you've got a little bit more redundancy than a gas.
So explain to me. That was the other question that I had. We're now starting to. We talk. An electric boiler is not a heat pump. All right, you can have a heat pump which feeds water into an electric boiler, so that the temperature of the water is higher when it goes into the electric boiler, and you don't have to use as much electricity. So what is it? Is it an electric boiler or a heat pump electric boiler, or what?
Well, they're calling it an electric heat pump.
An electric heat pump. So it's a heat pump. Sorry, I don't want to get into the details now. Maybe we'll have it offline, because this is going to happen here. And the other question that I have is, if we were to sweat our gas boiler asset, how much longer will it last? So the gas boilers...
We are already having problems with it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're already having problems with it, and that's putting at risk the art in Pātika.
That'd be the ancillaries around it, not the gas boiler itself.
Well,
No, I'm not sorry, Mayor Baker. It doesn't matter. I'll have it offline. We're going to
All
do
right.
it anyway.
Okay, cool. I'm going to, if there were no further questions on that item, Jeff had a general question or comment. I'll come back to you, Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Matu Upoko. In previous TPK meetings, we've had, as part of the project exception report, a section relating to broader outcomes and in terms of procurement. And I note that there wasn't one in this report. Is there a reasoning behind that?
Through the chair, thank you for your question. We do that reporting every 6 months, so that will be coming with the December quarter report.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that.
All right, that brings us to the end of this item. So I'm going to put the recommendation that we receive the report. All those in favour, please say aye. Opposed? That is carried. Noting that we talked about stopping at 10, we have one substantive item in public excluded, so I'm just going to push straight through. So on that, I am going to move that we go into public excluded, seconded by Councillor Ford. All those in favour, please say aye. Opposed? That is carried. We'll now move